Hi, Socialist Links here. There's been a lot of talk on political communities, on YouTube and on Discord, talking about markets, and entirely of like what has been going on, throughout this whole COVID-19 thing and how entirely to solve that. And they've been advocating for the entirety of markets, and there's been talks of markets, even in socialist communities, especially people like in Bosch's server. So I just wanted to make this video to essentially give like my take and at least my critiques on markets entirely, how to solve it, and especially what is markets first. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. So what is a market? Markets are things in which the 21st century are violently defended not only by the people that normally are pro-capitalist, such as libertarian capitalists, but are also defended by anti-capitalists, as well as such as mutualists and market socialists. We'll get into that later. They argue that markets are a thing that they have not only existed for centuries in human societies, but also that they require not only the efficiency to distribute and exchange things in society, but to also allow the maximization of well-being and freedom for society in comparison to any planned economy, which would either fail in effective and effectively calculate and distribute things, and or would give rise to authoritarianism and misery in this common conception that people hold when it comes to markets. And this conception causes people to um, what's the, okay to essentially reduce their support to communism or any anti-market system because of this. So we have to ask this question: what is the market, and why are people so clinging onto the idea of the need of a market? Well, firstly, a market is the first and foremost a human construction. It is a thing that we created and only exists because we exist, unto to help perpetuate its existence. The markets are construct that are not existed without being human beings and human action within it. The reason why I say this is because people like to believe that are there are certain things that we cannot live without due to a certain meaning, quality, or ability to them. But in reality, those very meanings, qualities, and abilities are within us or derived from us. But we end up delegating these meanings, qualities, and abilities to these certain things because they serve a utility to us, and or there is a particular way in which we interact with them that gives them their meaning, qualities, and/or abilities. To simplify that what I that what I just said, markets are a human construction, and like all or most human constructions, we can change it or get rid of it as we please, since as the people give those things and meanings, qualities, abilities, and power for us, and not to the other way around. Secondly, markets entirely as a function focuses upon to the exchange value of a product being produced. So, for example, let's say you need to produce a commodity, right? You're producing some good. You can sell that upon to a market or give it upon to a stock under a market, of which it will be sold. Um, and usually because of this, it generalizes commodity production, and it doesn't and because of that it essentially um, generalizes upon to a commodity production within products and of exchange value. So that way, they can be able to like get profit and money out of what they sell, um, under a spontaneous market where anyone that has the highest bidder essentially buys that. right? Like whoever has the more money essentially gets up onto like the stock. It's not exactly a gambling structure, right? But essentially you buy stocks or you buy products using the entirety of a mode of exchange. Markets are a mode of exchange and distribution. Um, based upon to exchange value. That is what a market is. Um, and exchange value is exchange value is essentially value focused upon to exchange rather than a production of use. And this actually goes in to my critique of markets entirely. So let's move on to that. Sorry. While it may be true that markets did provide a purpose in the past temporarily compared to the times of feudalism, where production was based on farming and crops to be grown and given to kings and landlords, it is very much ineffective today. For in the entirety of the past after feudalism, it industrialized our production, industrialized our society. But when it comes to today, it is very ineffective. It is very ineffective at upgrading infrastructure, production. It's horrible at providing better worker conditions, better housing, more distribution, and giving an economy based on needs. Again, for it promotes entirety of profit first, then need. The markets exist for the bourgeoisie, the bosses, employers, CEOs, and so on, for them to compete against others by employing proletarians, workers, laborers, and so on, to have the best stock or value in the market. For it gives the employers and CEOs profit out of it in exchange. Um, and obviously you can understand how this can actually backfire in many ways, and it does. Best example, this result in creates overproduction. So you might be thinking, what the hell is overproduction? What is overproduction? Overproduction, like in the name, implies production rates and or productive forces produce too much for supply to handle, and or not distributing these produced goods for the populace that need it and or calls for it. This is the case for today. When it comes to markets, there are many things to understand from this. We are going to be focusing markets for this video because this is a critique on markets. This is a call for the abolition of markets. If you'd like to know more, then please check out my critique of the capitalism series. I highly recommend that. It'll probably be on the right there. So definitely check it out for sure. Anyways. Because of this, through the system of mode of exchange and distribution with markets, not only creates this, but has no way of solving it either. The markets seek for the subjection of exchange value, how much can be sold or bought, rather than the use value, the quality or time a product can last, thus generalizing commodity production. Produced goods estranged from products of use, such as a toy, robot, antiques, decorations, and so on. Further than production of use, products, goods, and services based on need, such as food, water, medicine, shelter, and so on. So they create so many goods and services that can be distributed but are not because there is no exchange for it. This as well creates a crisis. So how does even a crisis in a market happens? Again, I've actually made a video on this upon to like why economic crisis happens. You can go check it out there. Highly recommend it. But at least for this video, to understand up onto like as well as kind of like the reason why I don't like markets, as we should not like markets entirely. Most of the time, usually just as I said, overproduction and or lack of distribution. This was the case of the market crash in 1929, 1978, 1987, 2008, 2017, and even now 2020. The very system of markets focuses on the profits and exchange value more than the actual needs of the workers that make these stocks or the workers that later have to improve this stock. So the only way it can sustain itself is to present in the present of this without abolishing itself is to go through a crisis. So that way it can sustain itself. The irony of kind of like the effectiveness of quote unquote of like the effectiveness of markets is so ineffective in itself because it has to go through a crisis in order to sustain itself. That's not an effective system. That is what Marx would say in Wage, Labor, and Capital. Quote, the market and private institutions are subjected to eat itself and its own comrades. End quote, Karl Marx, Wage, Labor, and Capital. This is very much true. You can, like, this is an ineffective system, regardless how you want to portray it. This is an ineffective system, and this is something that needs to be abolished. Like, this is showing that markets are not one mode of distribution and exchange for basis are for profit. It is rather the most profitable and most valuable on exchange product they can create, and how to do it so fast. Even if we are to give this power to the workers, such as market socialists call for, wouldn't even really do much either, because the very system of markets creates capital and tries to prescribe it as well, thus leaving workers to exploit each other in the workplace they control. If anything, I would call that as a degeneration of markets, because yeah, not abolishing markets is essentially just recreating, or essentially trying to essentially have a degeneration of markets in the first place. And it's very much, well, yeah, it's very much ineffective, and this is kind of like a system that we need to fix entirely, as any person at all, as any socialist, as any people, and even as people, we should look upon to these markets and look upon to like the market system entirely, and look at that and actually understand that this is entirely a horrible, horrible way of distributing goods. Um, so this leaves us a question: how to solve that? So, what can we do to solve this? Well, usually we have to recognize the very system of markets as a mode of exchange and distribution is ineffective. It must be abolished. So what we have to do is create a planned economy based on the workers' hands, essentially a workers' planned economy. But what is a planned economy? A planned economy is a mode of exchange and distribution handled by a plan carried out by a people or a state and institution based on need, use value, and production of use. This system is not only very much solve would not only very much solve overproduction, but it will also provide more shelter, more food, water, medicine, healthcare, productivity, and worker conditions. Of course, we are talking about a workers' planned economy based on the workers themselves producing and distributing goods for themselves and people that need it most through use value rather than exchange. So that's basically a workers' planned economy. But then we're going to ask ourselves, as socialists entirely, this is the entirety of the functions of a workers' state, essentially of a state controlled by the working class. If you want to learn more, then you can, yeah, look at the video of my response to Hykem and Finball, and like Premier Lyles. That basically kind of explains what I mean by a workers' state. So what do we have to understand on how socialism can solve this? Well, through the abolition of classes, money, and state, we will not even have a need of markets or even private production entirely, and distribution of any kind. Of course, in the worker state as well, but just through the abolition of the class and money, that like, and handling it through labor vouchers, it creates a freely associated labor based upon to the people and humanity acting on their contribution for society to evolve itself. The same is under communism, but the difference is that upon to this mode of distribution, it is based upon from each court is based upon to the needs of others and the ability of others, basically on how much you need and like all of that stuff, and the ability of others on how on like what can you do and what should be done, instead of just based on the contribution as well. So that is entirely of how socialism can solve this. Socialism and communism can solve this. Anyway, these three systems, the worker state, socialism, communism, can very much solve this. But it typically isn't, because of like through media bias and through essential kind of like private media ideas by companies, the CEOs, employers, and all of these things. So you have to also look up onto the sources as well. And again, I'll provide sources in the bottom of the description, the best sources I can find, that isn't like fucking portrayed upon to like just capitalists and bourgeois that seek to fucking that seek upon to trying to say that this is entirely ineffective, because yeah, it affects their profits. But luckily I found some sources. Luckily I found a lot of sources upon this. Anyways, just to essentially keep upon to it, like final saying, we are the laborers of our actions today. We must be able to produce a better society. So, This is the call: abolish markets and abolish private distribution. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, then hit the like button down below. I very much appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button. I'd also very much appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button. I'd also appreciate that a lot. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and such as links, and also thank you to Jackie Roving for helping me upon to the script. He's the guy that actually kind of like defined the markets in the first part of the video, and I couldn't have done it without him. Definitely couldn't have like had a better understanding upon the markets without him. So yeah, thank you, Jackie Roving, and yeah, Socialist Links is out.